So I wonder what sort of trout season we're in for this year. The last couple have had their ups and downs. Come with me now and we'll try and find out what this one's like. G'day, Starlo here, and I'm out celebrating the beginning of another trout season. What a mixed bag the trout seasons have been across the last few years since COVID. We had 2 or 3 of the best seasons that I can ever remember, and then last year was just terrible. I really struggled to find a fish, and I know a lot of other people were in exactly the same boat. What's this year going to hold? Who knows? But I've come to one of my favourite places, and that's Tumut, on the western side of the Snowy Mountains, and I'm staying here in the Reflections Tumut River Park, which is right on the river, as you can see. In fact, I'm still within the park boundaries here where I'm fishing. That's where I'm going to kick off. Hey, and look, I'm using my BFS gear, and I finally managed to get my hands on a couple of the new Shimano BFS rods that are available here in Australia. I'll be telling you a lot more about those as the episode progresses, but I want to get a lure in there now and try and catch my first trout of the season. Throwing something a little bit unusual. What I've actually put on here is one of the old Shimano wax wings. Who remembers those? This was the smallest size they made, and I've chosen the rainbow trout pattern. It's a great little lure and beautiful to cast on the BFS gear. Anyway, I better get into it. Got to catch that first trout of the season. The Tumut River's running high, fast and very clear, with lots of water being released from Blowering Dam to supply the irrigators downstream. These aren't the easiest of conditions to fish in, but trout are certainly still catchable when it's like this. And what a lovely spot it is. I'm quietly optimistic as I cover the water within the park itself, and I'm absolutely loving this new Shimano Artiesta BFS rod. It's a gem and such a pleasure to cast, loading up really nicely with that old school waxwing lure. And I've also managed to finally get my hands on a left-hand wind BFS baitcaster reel. This is going to be something a little bit different for me as well. I've used my spin reels and most other reels left-hand drive for 40 or 50 years, but I've always stuck to right-hand winding on my bait casters, and my reasoning behind that has been that the grip that you use when you're casting a bait caster is not necessarily the best grip for when you're actually retrieving the lure, setting the hook, fighting a fish. So because I like to palm the reel, I just change hands, usually in mid-flight, so that I can wind with my right hand. But I can actually see a lot of advantages with the BFS gear of winding left-handed. So we'll see how I go and how long it takes me to get my head and my hands around something different. Wow, such a nice reel to cast. Of course, the wax wing's a sinking lure. It doesn't sink super fast, but it does get down. And I'm swinging it with the current. The Tumut River is running high, cold and clear, as it often does. So what I'm doing is casting and letting the lure swing down and across, and I can feel it working all the way. I'll start off with some short ones. Just cover the close in water first. Because the water is so clear, I'd imagine that if an aggressive fish sees this lure, it'll be quite happy to travel a couple of metres to take it. And then I'll just reach out a little bit further with each cast. Down in this quadrant here is where I most expect to get a hit as that lure comes around. It's just like swinging a wet fly on fly gear. A little bit further with the next cast. I feel like I'm covering this water pretty well, but so far, no trout action. That's okay, I've got plenty of time. I know they're out there, I've just got to fool one into eating. Further again. I'm casting up and across the river to help get the lure down in the strong flow, then following it around with the rod tip. I'm wet wading. As you can see, I don't have waders on. I've just got my wading boots and lightweight trousers on, and I can tell you what, this water's cold, but it's a hot day, so I'm actually enjoying it. The air temperature's in the mid to high 20s, but I reckon that water's probably more like 12 or 13 degrees. Ideal for trout. Getting well out now. As you can see, not a lot of line left on the reel. I only put about 50 metres, or probably not even 50 metres on, maybe 40 metres. So I find they do cast really well if you keep that line load low. Hopefully I'm not going to get spooled by a trout. I've got 8-pound braid on here and an 8-pound leader, which is actually quite heavy gear from my perspective anyway for trout fishing, so I should be able to dictate terms to the fish, but there are some big trout in the Tumut River. When it gets straight down below me here, I can feel the lure working really hard, so I just wind it slowly. Oop, it's up under those trees, which is a good spot. And then when I get it within sight, I'm watching the lure carefully to make sure there's not a fish following it. But so far, no sign. I'll keep plugging away. Wow, this gear is so well suited to this job. It gives me heaps of control and lots of feel for what's going on out there. I'm full of anticipation with every cast and retrieve. I reckon I've covered that bit of water fairly well now, so I'm going to move downstream 20 metres or so and repeat the pattern. Normally when I'm spinning a trout stream, I travel upstream and I cast ahead of myself, but this water is running so fast that you'd have to wind flat out to get any action out of your lure. I'll show you what I mean. If I throw it up there, I've got to wind like this to make contact with the lure and give it some action, and that can work, but I just think that this swinging it downstream is going to be a better option. See if I'm right. There are lots of accessible points along this stretch of river within the Reflections Park, although in a few spots I do need to get in and do a bit of bush bashing to reach the water, but that gives me access to some less frequently fished stretches. This backwater looks really promising, particularly along the current break between the faster and slower water. That's prime. Oh, there's a big fish behind it. That was a big trout. Oh, I'm guessing you didn't see that without the polarised glasses, but that was a big trout. He didn't look like he was going to take it, he was just shadowing it. Whoa. Let's see if it comes back. Oh, here he comes again. Here he comes again. What I should do now is change lures. He's followed that twice, second time less keenly than the first. So I'm going to move back from the water and have a lure change. Ooh, this is exciting. It is exciting, but several lure changes didn't get any result. So I ended up putting the waxwing back on as the afternoon wore on and the sun sunk. I'm right behind the park's campsites now, but there are trout here too, and the fishing can be quite sociable. G'day mate, hey, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Andy's mate.
Sorry?
I'm Andy's mate.
Oh, righto. How you going?
Okay. He's Mark.
G'day Mark, how you doing?
I don't know how he went down the coast.
Well, he was getting a few fish when I saw him.
Yeah. With the boys.
Yeah, he wasn't setting the world on fire, but they were catching a few floodies and whiting. Yeah. Are you here fishing or?
I was planning to, but a really busy spot right here.
Yeah. No, we're here for a couple of days. I'll venture a bit further than this, but I thought it was just worth a look. There'll be fish out there. They've just probably been hammered a bit.
Yeah, but there's a fair bit of water coming
Oh,
out.
it's hard when it's like this. I reckon it's dropped a couple of inches today, but yeah, it needs to drop a lot more to be fun to fish.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, there you go.
Speak of the devil. I thought I had a bump on that previous cast. There you go. Little rainbow, is it, or a little brown? Little brownie. Beautiful.
Oh, there's one as
Yeah, first trout of the season.
well.
Well, that's a start. It's no monster, but I'm still pretty happy to see it. Off you go, mate. I'm fishing with renewed enthusiasm now, but unfortunately that was it for the evening. Tomorrow is another day. Well, day two, and it's a very different day. Overcast. It's been raining most of the morning, but the rain's clearing up now. Feels pretty fishy. It's quite warm and humid, and we've hit a different part of the river, a little bit further away from the park, still very close to town, and there's public access here that allows you to get in and walk along the riverbank, and lots of really good fishable water, even when it's at a high level like this. Jo's behind me. She's actually Euro nymphing with her fly gear, so it'll be interesting to see how she goes. It might actually suit her better than it does me with the spin gear. I'm going to get into it. Surely today will be the day. I've got high hopes. There has to be a big trout out there with my name on it. I've got to say, I'm loving the left-handed baitcaster. It didn't take me long to get my head around it at all, and just being able to do that, not swap hands and get straight into it, I've found a nice comfortable way to hold it where I can free spool the reel easily, cast and be straight into winding. So much control. Plenty of distance too, and without any effort. And people say, how can you lure fish when it's running this hard? Well, you just got to think about what the current's doing. By casting up and across the current, letting the lure get down at the beginning of the retrieve, I can get it down pretty close to the bottom. I'm actually bumping the bottom there, it's quite shallow. And then as it comes down here, I let it swing with the current. I can feel that lure working even when I'm not retrieving. And that's got to be swinging it across the noses of any fish holding out there in front of a boulder or whatever. Feels like it's going to work, we'll see. And this wax swing's ideal for it. There's lots of other lures you could use and do the same thing, metal spoons. Maybe some of the floating diving minnows, although I think they'd probably tend to blow out of the water, especially when they got down below you in the strength of the current. But despite how good this gear feels and my confidence that I'm covering the water well, there's just no action so far. Put a big one out near the other side. Not much line left on the spool after a cast like that. Come on, I'm just willing a trout to climb on. Just waiting for that crunch. I'm wet wading again. I much prefer this to wearing waders if I can get away with it. Looks like Jo might be having a fly change down there. She's probably got a feel for what the water's doing, and she's changing the weight of her fly. Even without a fish, this is a lovely place to be. Just listening to the rush of the water and the sound of the birds calling. It's all very relaxing. I like to bring my lure upstream against the current at the end of the retrieve, keeping it right in that prime zone near the undercut bank and that overhanging grass. Suddenly the quiet is punctuated by a much louder sound.
That's why you don't camp under those.
A massive branch has just come down from one of the trees that we started under. Wow. Look at this down in here. This is where you can imagine, especially a brown trout, hanging out. A little bit hard to fish, but there are other areas like this up in front of me. So the first cast I put in is just going to be up parallel with the bank, quite a short one. And I'm watching the lure closely in the water to see if there are any fish following it. And then I'll slowly just lengthen up my casts, fish this area in close to the bank. Brownies in particular will get under these banks. There's undercuts on most of these banks and they'll sit right in underneath, especially in this super clear water. If it was a sunny day in particular, they'd be tucked in. But today with a bit of cloud cover, hopefully they might be out having a bit of a cruise. Just going a few metres further with each cast. I'm reasonably satisfied now that there's no fish tucked in up along the bank there, or certainly no active ones, so I'll move up a little bit. So they're a spiral wrap rod, these new BFS rods from Shimano, which means the guides start on the top of the rod as they would in most bait casters, and they actually go around the rod as they progress up the guide chain and end up with the tip facing downwards like it would on a spin rod. And these have been around for a long, long time, and I've been a fan of them for a long, long time, but there's a lot of customer resistance to them. There are a lot of advantages to having a spiral wrap. You can get away with less guides because you're not having to keep the line above the blank under load where it might cross over and touch. You're getting it underneath pretty quickly. So you can usually get away with one or two less guides, keeps it lighter. But more importantly, the outfit doesn't want to twist in your hands under load. You haven't got that torque, that pressure that wants to pull the rod around in your hand because the guides are up on top. I absolutely love them. No disadvantages. People say, oh, it must cut down on your casting distance. It doesn't, trust me. It makes no difference at all. It's really, really good. It's not only the trees that are falling today. Slippery. Yeah. No, nothing hurt apart from my pride and a bit more mud on my pants. Well, I'm doing it pretty tough. I've had a couple of lure changes. I've had one follow, one hit. Joe's dropped one on the fly this afternoon, but it's tough going. What's my feelings about the new trout season? Well, I got a bit spoiled, I think, in 21, 22, 23. They were probably 3 of the best trout seasons in my living memory. And then last year was just awful. I really struggled to catch a fish. I know that there were people that did catch fish, but I really struggled. There's a lot of different theories as to why. There was certainly a boom in cormorant numbers in southeastern Australia. They absolutely decimated the trout populations in a couple of rivers in Tasmania and then travelled up through Victoria and New South Wales. That certainly had an impact, especially on the smaller rainbows, which are not that smart and tend to get eaten fairly quickly by things like cormorants. But yeah, it's just disappointing. I'm going to hang in there and keep trying. I am absolutely loving this gear. I told you that I'd give you a bit more of a rundown on these rods. I'll do an actual whole episode on the 3 BFS rods that I've got from Shimano at the moment, the Australian models. This is the Artiesta, which is the top of the line one. It's absolutely beautiful. This one that I've got here is 7 feet 3 inches long. It's for 1 to 4 kilo lines, and it says it'll cast 1 to 7 grams, but I reckon if you know your BFS stuff, you'll probably cast a bit less than a gram on it. And it sits beautifully with this SLX BFS reel, which I managed to get a bit of mud on when I fell over. It's such a nice outfit to cast and to fish with, and I am loving the left-hand drive bait caster. I think I'll be sticking with that. All right. I've still got about 500 metres to go back to the car. Surely I can catch 1 trout. But I didn't. Joe managed a cute little brownie on the fly, but that was it for us. Well, I'm on the road, headed back over the mountain on my way home after what was a fairly tough trip. This is beautiful Blowering Dam out here to my right. That's where all that water that was running down the Tumut River is coming from. They're releasing water for irrigation further downstream, and that was why it was running so high and cold and clear and powerful. And that undoubtedly made the fishing even more difficult. But it was a tough trip. And I got to tell you, I've had a string of fairly tough trips lately. Don't believe everything you see on social media and YouTube and whatever. Everybody has tough fishing trips. It's one of the things that I often talk to you about, and it's part of my motivation and my dedication to keeping it real on my channel, telling you when I have tough trips. And I have had a string of them over the last couple of months. In fact, it's helped me come to a decision that I need to actually take a little bit of a break from YouTube for a while, get my head straightened out and try and get a bit of material under my belt so that I'm not constantly chasing something to put out every week. I'm just going to take a month or so off and de-stress, because it is surprisingly stressful having to produce content every week and trying to catch fish. As an angler yourself, if you're watching this, I'm sure you know that it's not always easy. The two things we have no control over are the weather and the fish, and both can conspire against us from time to time and result in those tough trips. And like I said, I've had a whole run of them. So I am going to take just a couple of weeks or a month off and just de-stress, re-examine my fishing, and then I'll be back into it again with a whole bunch of new material. So don't worry, I'm not going away for good. I'll probably pop up an occasional short, and I'll also make sure I make some posts on YouTube as well as all my other social media. Look, don't get me wrong, I've really enjoyed the last couple of days, and I absolutely love Tumut and the Tumut River. I've had some brilliant fishing out there, and wow, staying in the Reflections Park this time, I've stayed there before too, but we were in a cabin and it was absolutely lovely. It's a great spot, check it out. Anyway, until I get back onto YouTube in a month or so, this is Starlo signing off for a little while. I hope you'll hang in there and wait for me to come back, because I definitely will. I enjoy YouTube, I really do, but it is a different kind of stress to writing for magazines or whatever. I guess in some ways it's taken me back to my TV days. You know, we were always under a lot of pressure when you are trying to produce segments for television, especially with expensive film crews in tow and all the rest of it. But YouTube, in a way, is a more unrelenting pressure because I'm trying to produce at least one piece of content for you every week, and I want it to be valuable content. Wow, that lake looks fantastic. So for now, at least, this is Starlo signing off and wishing you tight lines.